Welcome to the Popular Pig Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rooda, and joining us today is Barrett Eller of Swine Tech and PJ Corns at JBS. How are you doing today, PJ?
I'm doing awesome. How are you guys?
I'm doing wonderful.
Doing great.
Hey, first of all, congratulations to you and your family.
Thank you.
Some big news.
Thank you.
That's
We're
awesome.
expecting a baby girl on January 6th.
I wasn't going to get into that, but yeah.
No, thank you.
Otherwise, yeah, pretty good.
We'll call this the official announcement.
When we were
I
talking,
hope your parents know.
we were talking this week, and I was like, "Man, the first one's a special." And he's like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Yeah, because you get to mess everything up there first, like the first time together, so you really can't blame anybody." So it's kind of nice. So,
yeah, if you mess it up with the second one, then you're just bad. No, just kidding.
whole nother list of things there. So, but yeah, cool.
No, but congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk a little bit about PJ's journey in the swine industry, but also get into how geography-wise for the industry things are different and how technology is making an impact, and then wrap up with what are the expectations of the future professionals in the swine industry? What are they going to need to look like? What are their skill sets going to need to be to thrive and lead this industry to the next, take it to that next level? So to start out, can you talk a little bit about where you grew up and where'd you go to school?
All right, we'll start out hot here. Maybe age myself a little bit here. Grew up in Florida, West Coast, Bradenton, Sarasota area. Never saw a pig in my life until I got in this business after college and went to school at University of Florida, the Harvard of the South.
I've never heard that.
Gators.
Yeah, we won't talk football this year, though, so it's going to be a pretty interesting weekend for
We're
us.
talking football.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, on that note...
What'd you study at Florida?
I started out not really knowing what I was going to do, but got kind of involved with some guys who were in the AGR House of Florida off Gamma Row, and went down that rabbit hole of getting into the ag world. So I grew up on the beach of Florida, so I was way fish out of water in that, but some pretty cool guys, and I don't know, it was pretty good there, and ended up majoring in ag operations management. So graduated mid to late 90s. Kind of give myself a little bit of air of mystery there on that. But yeah, graduated from there and went into this business after that. Again, not ever seeing a pig in my life till I got in this business, going to work for Smithfield Foods on the East Coast in North Carolina there. So that was kind of my start in this business.
So when you were at Florida and AGR, are there any individuals that were there with you that are still active in the swine industry today?
Yeah, there's one guy, a good friend of mine, Greg Sconyers, was actually, he's from North Florida, though. That's a totally different beast up there. That's L.A., Lower Alabama, up where he's from, Lake City. But yeah, so he got into this business, and I'm like, good luck with that, man. I don't know anything about what you're going to be doing, but me and another guy graduated a year after that named Jay Ryan, and yeah, both kind of didn't know really what we were getting into, and that was back when kind of the business was growing quicker than what they had people for. So got thrown into the fire there. Wouldn't change any of that. Kind of refer back to those days, power washing nursery crates and doing that kind of stuff. Almost every day to what I do now, so I will never forget that. But yeah, so Greg Sconyers, shout out to Greg.
Is he the reason you got into the swine industry?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
But no, I mean, Greg's a smart guy, and I knew when he got in it, there must be something there. So that's kind of what Jay and I were thinking about. Like, he wouldn't get in that unless there was something going on. So that was kind of it.
So did you go to a lot of games in the swamp?
Yes, that was back when we were pretty good. And I remember I probably would have graduated with Greg, but I remember distinctly I was having a pretty good time at that time because that's back when Spurrier and Danny Warfel and all that was going on. And yeah, I remember going to my academic advisor and him saying, "Hey, you're on track to graduate next spring." And I'm like, hang on a minute, man. That does not fit my plans. We got one more football season. So I had to kind of edge that out a little bit as far as my education goes to get into that fall. And yeah, eventually won the national championship that year. So yeah.
But not this year. How are you
You
coping?
knew he was going to. You knew
How are
he
you?
was
How
gonna
are you
say that.
coping with the Gator season this year?
So we spoiled the perfect plan when we took on Texas. The whole plan was to get blown out and maybe do something with our coach, and we won, and then we lost to Texas A&M, and yeah. So here we are. So it's going to be an interesting. We're a terrible fan base, but when it's good, it's good, and when it's average, we're really bad. So yeah,
How long has he been coaching?
3 years.
3 years.
2.5 too many.
I was gonna say for the big schools, that's already 2.5 too many. It's like lost 3 games, don't have a national title. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work.
Your contract buyout's probably not going to be near as big as what Franklin's was, where they owe him like $48 million.
Right.
Yeah, but kind of helps the conversation to move forward a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Signetti at Indiana, he just got offered like 93 or 90 some million dollars for an 8-year contract.
Yeah, Indiana just went, that's mine.
Yeah, well, he walked in the day after.
Can you imagine he strolled in like Conor McGregor that next day after?
Like, what you gonna pay me? Because I'm
Yes.
going to Penn State. They're like,
Yes.
as much money as you want.
Right.
How much is he getting paid? Bring that up,
Yeah,
Logan.
can you bring that up,
Yeah.
Logan?
I think it's 83 million over, I don't know, 8 years because it's 11.3 average. I saw this morning he's the third highest annual
Third
salary
highest.
out
Yep.
there.
That's just crazy.
So
Kurt Signetti.
Yeah, we'll get that.
We'll get that.
It's
Yeah, no,
pretty
it's
good-
wild
it's
how good
pretty
they've been
good
so
money.
fast. I just think that it's a little premature given he's playing with the players he's brought with him. He hasn't necessarily gone through a full recruiting cycle yet, but if he can get Cuban to give them the money to recruit, then
Yep.
it's a whole different story.
no doubt.
All right, I got it. New contract will run for 8 years. He'll collect an average of $11.6 million per year. He'll make $92.8 million. Ranks third average annual value
Yeah, we know our stuff.
Yeah,
behind
Not bad.
Georgia and Ohio State.
I'm the book of useless knowledge. Just like now I know PJ graduated in 1997.
close.
I was trying to go off Danny's Heisman year.
So when you were in Florida, you ever go alligator hunting? Have you ever done that?
That would have been before I got to college. So yeah,
So you did?
Yeah,
You
a little. Yeah, somewhat of that. Dabbled in it. I was smart enough to know this ain't my gig.
Is it as cool as it sounds?
I don't know about that. Not that memorable. Other than I'm still alive and have my fingers. So.
So Matt,
PJ noodled gators.
Matt has a list of things in his mind. That's like,
I didn't think noodle would enter this conversation, but here we go.
Matt thinks, what are the things that would almost kill me? And I need to make a list, and I'll just go back. Survived.
Yeah, what does it kill you makes you stronger.
A few of those are as the Airbnb selections, but I'll pass on that.
Yes, and some of those adventures by court order I can't talk about.
So,
Statute of limitations.
so after Florida and you went to Smithfield, what was that journey into Smithfield like? At what time was that pre-acquisition of Murphy? What was that time like?
Yeah, so that would have been
Yeah.
acquisition. And again, that was back when, just the real growth in this industry. They were literally building farms before they had animals and people. And with that would come, bringing people in. I was brought in with a group of, over 20 people, to kind of come in and learn the ropes, go through that, and eventually try to manage if you could, So, again, brought up through the nursery phase, washing crates. My farm manager at that time, the Kane Sow Farm in White Oak, North Carolina, was John Bullard. And again, I've told this story several times. I washed those nursery crates for about 3 months, and finally, I went up to John and I said, "Is there anything else I can do?" And he's like, "Man, I thought you liked washing those crates." So that started my
Yeah, I
real
didn't get a 4-year
drive.
degree to just.
Well, it was okay. It got me thinking, but taught me a lesson. When don't hold back on all asking about your next responsibility. So,
Man, if somebody is in life and they're not sure what their next step is and they want to get paid while they think about it, just go power wash.
power wash.
Power wash for a month, and you will figure out the next 10 years of your life.
It's good therapy.
It's very good therapy. And so when you were going through that, so like they say right now in China, as they're building super, super fast, that they're almost building the facilities before they even know where they're going to process the pigs. Did it almost feel like that? Was it so fast that we're going to build, we're going to start, we're not quite sure how we're going to manage or how many pigs we're going to be able to process, but we're going to build this thing because we need to run?
Yeah, some very similar things like that because I spent some time over in Asia, and that I saw some of those same things. Beautiful GDUs, with 450, 500-pound gilts in it, because we had the facilities, but we didn't know how to operate them, and I think going back to those days, we had some pretty good facilities, and I for sure didn't know how to operate them, so I had to learn that. So definitely some things in Asia that are very similar to that. Now they're building these high rises and everything else. And
have you been into one of those?
Visited one back. This would have been back in deep ASF time, so like 2019. Looking at those. So
how cool was that? Or was it scary?
I'm fairly claustrophobic person, okay. So sitting on the bottom floor of that, knowing that there's millions of pounds of effluent, I didn't get a warm and fuzzy, So yeah, it is what it is, But I think they've caught up with some of that technology. But again, that was where they were given the keys to the Maserati and didn't know how to start it, and that's coming along, So that was a very good experience for me. The same as back in the Smithfield days was. Again, I never saw a pig. I need to learn quick, and that was a great way to be brought up. I don't know whether I'd survive it again, but I got through it.
So you go and you ask for something more. What was that something more, and what was that trajectory within Smithfield before you decided to make that next transition?
Yeah, that's something was working in Fairwind. My Fairwind department head was Billy Sue Monroe, so she gave me the opportunity to take care of the older pigs, and this was pre-PERS days. So we did a lot of things back then that I'd probably be fired for now as far as moving pigs goes.
What would you do with moving pigs?
We would move a lot of, younger pigs to older and older pigs to younger. We had that cookie cutter type look that now if you did that, bad things are going to happen. Yes. But it sure looked good, back then.
It was like bump weaning, was it? Or it's like where you're taking some of the smaller pigs, trying to give them a few more days, and then taking some of the bigger ones that you think could fit and just go straight to the finisher.
You name it. I'll probably set ourselves back millions of years here, but we used to take off at day one every pig. And then bring them back onto the sows by size. We would
really?
Take them off.
Bring
full
them sizing.
Into a pick. Oh, yeah. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And our pre-wean was great. Obviously, our total born was lower back then. But there were days, I remember with Billy Sue, I would always meet her in the middle by the wean pit, and I'd come up and I'd say, I had 2 mortality, 15 mortality. And my whole goal was to say 0. Because that's when I knew things were good. I had 0 mortality. And then, eventually built into running Fairwind and then, managing the farm when John got promoted. And ironically, to this day, my service person at the time was Mike Wyant. And Mike went on through his career with the Murphy Ventures Group, and get to work with Mike today as we have some 2 contract farms with Mike. So it's a good thing. What's cool. Old is new again. Mm-hmm. The circle of life in the pig business.
So did you stay in Fairwind until you decided to move from Smithfield, or did you continue to grow within Smithfield?
Yeah, I became farm manager. Again, that was, I don't want to say by default, but, they needed people to manage. Mm-hmm. John got promoted to a much bigger farm, bigger system, and somebody needed to step up, So I stepped up into that manager role again in the cane farm. That would have been 3-site daughter nucleus, I believe it was 2,400. So that was a big step up, and I think that was within like 6 to 8 months, maybe.
Okay.
Of that. But again, I think that was a lot of the progression back in that time. If you could pay your dues, me just dumb enough to keep washing crates and stay out of the fray, then get into Fairwind and get some results there. So it was good. Yeah, and again, a great experience to be able to, got to make pigs quick, got to know what you were doing. I don't know what would have happened if I would have came up to Billy Sue and said, hey, I got a lot more dead than you. I probably wouldn't be in this business, but yeah, kind of paid off there.
And you kind of had a similar entry, Barrett. You didn't have any pig background.
Absolutely not. I thought New Fashion was trying to get rid of me. So I had zero pig background, came from seed production with DuPont Pioneer as well as
Yeah.
a few other trades, and took a job at New Fashion Pork. The very first week we went out to Indiana, and I turned a corner and had, I think there was 10 or 11 gilts running my way. The closest I'd ever been to even a sow or a gilt before was like Iowa State Fair, behind bars, right? Now all of a sudden, like they're just like 10, 11 trying to take out my knees. I'm like, that's day one.
Yeah.
All right, let's now I know. So
My exposure, I think, was like Charlotte's Web, and I didn't even finish the book. I don't think, but anyway.
Oh, geez. So when did you decide to leave Smithfield, and where did you go from there?
Yes, that was shortly after the acquisition. Decided to get to the Midwest with my family. Wife's from the Midwest.
Is that when you got to Oski?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
So went to work with Christensen Farms back in the day. Guy by the name of Dr. Hans Rooda, who I still talk to today, kind of brought me aboard there in Minnesota, and that's kind of how the whole Midwest thing is taken on.
He's a
there.
smart guy.
He's a smart guy.
Very smart.
Well, he hired me, so that was a tough
Nice.
start there.
Poor guy.
But yeah, got through it, and yeah, still talk to him very often to this day. So yeah.
Do you get to interact much with Bob Christensen then?
Back in that day, there was, because that was a lot. Again, I stepped into it and a lot of growth back
Yeah.
then. And I remember we were developing some SOPs back in that day. That a lot of those are still very much in place today, and had his input in that. And I can remember we were getting real bound up in like copywriting our SOPs, like there were like we had the nuclear codes, back then. And I remember his statement was, if somebody can take your SOP and execute it better than you, that's not your SOP, So I'm like, all right. So we gave up on that and focused on execution there.
That's a big thing. People are super hesitant to share SOPs. Yet when you really get an inside look at the SOPs, it's the things that are shared at AASV or all these conferences. And so like they're already industry known.
Yeah.
We just don't know who is and who isn't doing them. But they're not necessarily all that unique.
No, it's I think the basis there is, and what I learned back in those days was, can you execute it? Can the SOP just be iffy and you execute the hell out of it? That's a good thing, and I think that's what we've really tried to do is look at that, because there's some folks out there with some really dedicated or, complex SOP, and, this is when we're going to sweep the barn and this, that, and the other. We tend to focus on those profit drivers and really focus on how are we executing this. And I think when we look at that, I think that's when we get better.
We had an advisor who was big in the entrepreneurial world, and we were talking about software. How do you protect it? What do you do? And there are ways to patent software, but he said at the end of the day, when it comes to your IP, what matters most is your philosophy.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be asking yourself, can we protect it? You should be asking yourself, are we in the right philosophy? Because it's hard to copy that. The culture, the intent, the purpose. And if you are executing your philosophy and you believe that philosophy to be correct, you're always going to be one step ahead of everybody else. The question you should be asking yourself is, do we have the wrong philosophy?
That's right.
And because that's what'll beat you.
Yeah.
And that really changed the way we were thinking about it. It's like, it's really hard to copy if you don't understand the core drivers of why we do what we do and you haven't lived it.
Boy, that was deep. What do you think about that, Barrett?
That was deep. That's going to be a clip, isn't it?
Take us deeper, Barrett.
Yeah, right. No, I would say like
that was way over my head. No.
I would say, we're talking about like, what is your core drivers, things like that. You face a lot of rapid acceleration growth, which, I look at it from the HR perspective. You see that a lot in manufacturing as well as some other industries, and not so much the swine industry today. Definitely through that time. What if you had to do that today with a type of rapid growth? What would be the three critical things you made sure your people knew on, we'll just say, the south side?
Well, kind of goes into, what we focus on. You got to have great gilt development. We know that, and we know today at JBS where we have that great, and we do have that in some places. really good things happen. So, and people catch on to that. They see, hey, this farm, we literally had a farm 2 weeks ago do over 19 total born, on non-Danish genetics. And we're like, we kicked the door down, let's keep going. So that's one. Body condition, was just on the phone with our multiplication director this morning, Joe Wolf, talking about body condition, so that if I'm talking about it, early in the morning, we know that's a good thing, because that we want that to be good, and we're going to be good at that. And we learned that from the South Americans, the Chileans on that back in the day. Their body condition was dialed in, and when that happens, good things happen. So what I get, guilt development, body condition, and then I'm gonna put 4 in there, so I'm gonna cheat a little bit.
No, I'll take 4.
Yeah,
Keep it going.
Heat check and day 1 pig care. That's where we got it. That's where we know we make money. And we put the best people there to do those jobs, and really good things happen. And we'll probably talk about that in a little bit. There's a certain thing that happens when those things are executing at a high level. But those are if I knew today, or how shall I say it, back in my Smithfield days when I was managing a farm, I'd be a lot further along, because I didn't get those things at that point, but now maybe something new will come up later, but right now that's what we dial in on, and it pays off.
Love it.
So how long were you at Christensen?
4 or 5 years there. Okay. You're going to catch me on the dates here that I'm going to be off on. So don't.
And then where'd you go from there?
From Christensen, got further into Iowa Select.
Okay.
So went down to Iowa Select, director sow production down there.
What year?
That would have been 2008 to 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. So built a team down there, helped, build a team in that, following the same thing, following the same thing we did elsewhere. Just copied some of those things. And some of it was personal, what we did here, can we do it here?
Yeah.
And then
did I luck out, or can I truly reproduce the success that I found in this environment?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then later on in my life, as I go to these crazy places like Inner Mongolia, Asia, Moldova, Russia, those things, do those things still work? And that was for me. Can we do that? Can we put guilt development in place in certain places that, we might be raising guilt in a cave, really. And that was really cool.
You saw guilts raised in a cave?
Actually, that was in Italy. Yeah.
That was in Italy?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Different?
Yeah, different.
So did you ever learn Indonesian, the language?
As you can tell, I barely know English, so I'm sticking to this one. So
I say that because one of
our
engineers grew up in Malaysia and he knows Indonesian, and we just sang happy birthday in Indonesian. That was a very different experience. It's kind of fun.
Random talents and backgrounds of swine tech.
Yeah.
Yep. So you were at Iowa Select, but eventually you started working overseas. When did you start to, I believe you lived in Barcelona. When did you do that?
He's got the pronunciation down too.
Oh, yeah, he's been around.
That. Yeah.
So when did that happen? And what encouraged you to go on the other side of the world?
Yeah. So started working with PIC, genetic company. And at that time, there was a gentleman by the name of Nick McCulley, who was there, the director of tech services. And Nick's a great guy. Now the director, vice president of Iowa Select. So that's a good thing. And, obviously a high level of trust with Nick, because there were some things going over in Europe, trying to get some of the things, royalties, True Cambros into that place there, and the director at that time over there was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Peter Christensen. I think that's the first time I've ever said doctor in front of Peter Christensen's name, so shout out to Peter there. He was building a team there, and it was just kind of a blank slate over there, and really went in not knowing a damn thing about anything going on over there. And some of that was okay, but as I look back on it, that was a fairly risky proposition, to do that. So that's where I started at PIC, in Europe. And eventually that trickled into Russia and Asia on the supply chain end. And then around 2015 decided, I wanted to do this on my own, to really see a couple things there. Could I do it on my own? And did those same principles hold place? And so here I am today.
And so you would have been overseas and you would have experienced ASF firsthand.
Yeah.
What was that like? That's not a very common experience for most people in the U.S. today.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of like PTSD. I was kind of in the middle of that, specifically over in China during that time frame,
Okay.
and some things going on over there with, if you don't test, you don't know kind of things, you know. So there was a lot more ASF over there than what we thought there was over there. And, working for some folks over there to kind of do a recon mission into that, really understanding you could have African swine fever really probably in 100% of the pigs in a region and be only reporting like 20-25% of that.
Oh, wow.
It's like we're operating right now endemic ASF, to understand that and kind of say, man, this is worse than what I thought, was kind of a real eye opener.
Well, and then you're overseas too, and on top of dealing with ASF, and that was moving, I believe that moved into, was it Romania or Ukraine? Where was Dr. Balaban?
Dr. Adrian Balaban. Matter of fact, I believe I am missing the Romanian Vet Association conference that's happening right now with FATROM over there. Yeah, and understanding that's where the whole biosecurity around that, Dr. Balaban and his team there really understanding we have to create more hurdles or barriers or firewalls or whatever the hell you call it before we get into farms now. Mm-hmm. So, now we're talking about putting dry showers in to farms, to come in. It was very similar to, PED when that hit.
Yeah.
I wasn't over here, but, I was kind of catching some of that when I was overseas.
You did miss the whole PED way.
Well, some of it got called back in over here when it was really tough. But you remember, nobody did, or hardly anybody did, bacon trailers back then. Now pretty much everybody is, So I think that's the evolution of what we're looking at from a biosecurity standpoint, specifically around ASF,
Well, shoot, in biosecurity, I mean, you've got groups now with cameras, and they're paying people in the Philippines or India to sit there and watch the camera and just manually track who's going in, who's not, just to try to get some kind of a viewpoint on that.
Yeah, all your major Chinese producers would have that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And for anybody interested in understanding Dr. Balaban's experience, we did a 2-part series on the podcast. So if you type in Adrian Balaban, you'll actually be able to go through and relive that with him. And saying there's some PTSD there is by no means overstating what that experience was like. So I highly recommend looking at that.
Yeah, Adrian doesn't get too emotional on anything, but it sure makes me that way. I mean, I think in that podcast,
it comes out.
I was in Ames, Iowa, talking to him about what is going on, and I would call him Dr. Balaban. He goes, and I think that's in there. He goes, don't refer to me as doctor now because that can't help.
Yeah,
you know.
I in no way deserve being called doctor because it has no relevance on solving this problem.
Yeah, it was tough.
Crazy.
It was tough. But on the backside, I mean, they're doing good, and Adrian's doing good, and they're having their vet association meeting right now, which I will make next year, I hope.
There you go.
So you go through that, and then immediately you're in COVID.
Yes.
In Europe.
Yes.
Explain.
Yeah, I don't even know how to explain that. I can remember that whole thing starting out because I was traveling every week. You've been over to Europe. It's a lot easier, economical wise, to get on a plane and travel. And I was
so much easier
every week. And I was going to, I've talked about these folks a lot. Just talked to them a couple days ago, the Belje folks over in Croatia. And I was going to Croatia, and that was kind of when things were percolating in the the Far East, and it was like, what's going on over there? So I go over to Croatia, and everything's fine, knee deep in pig production and doing that. And then this whole thing started coming down, and borders were closing and everything else. And the director of production over there was a very good friend of mine, Velimir Silly. I remember sitting with him at dinner, and I said, maybe I should just sit here and just weather the storm till this thing goes, And we were laughing. That would have been in like a 2-year sit. There's
wow.
I wouldn't mind sitting in Croatia, but yeah, things got kind of dicey after that. Yeah. So just what was
it like supporting producers? Because you still had clients in Asia and Russia throughout COVID. How did you still travel for those?
It was very difficult. Some of that travel wasn't probably above board, because at any point you could travel as a tourist. So that's where my American visa or passport kind of paid off. But, it was, Russia was impossible. China was impossible, and again, I can remember, I worked with the CP group over there in China and talking to them about every day, saying, hey, next week, let's plan on next week, let's plan on 2 weeks, and eventually that just faded off, and it's kind of sad now to think back on it. So it was extremely difficult, even in Spain, where it was, it wasn't like Australia lockdown, but it was pretty tight, you had to have special privileges to drive from region to region. I fortunately had that and was able to do work in Spain, do some podcast, but it just, after a year and a half of that, I needed to get back in pigs.
I forgot Australia was like locked down.
And
I forgot about that.
I was never a part of that, but coming in, working with the Rivalet group, which is now Australia Pork Group and the JBS group, I think I got that right. You still hear remnants of that, because the border of us, one state to the other, it's right there. You couldn't cross it, so it's like, man, that was tough. So it was tough.
What brought you back? And what brought
COVID.
you to JBS? It was
COVID. I needed to get back in pigs. There's only so much you can do podcasting wise. No offense, guys. But yeah, it was really the chance to, as you build a business model, it was great. I loved it, working with great people, making a lot of pigs, proving to myself that day one pig care in Italy or Inner Mongolia or Moldova, it's the same. It's the exact same. Really heightened my level of being able to teach when you don't know the language. So that was a benefit. But yeah, business wasn't built on a pandemic coming in, and cutting down. Because again, I was traveling every week somewhere. And when that shut down, it's like, I missed this one just about with everybody else on the planet, I guess.
It definitely feels like when you travel the world and you see farms in other countries that when it comes to raising pigs, we're not special. We have a very special supply chain and a high quality product. But when it comes to pig care, like, it's the basics, right?
It's the basics, and you talked about philosophy. Some of those philosophies are a little bit different. I think that's where we as Americans got some things that are a little bit more nuanced that some folks want to know. That ROI philosophy of, if I do this, if I pay for this, what do I get out of it?
Very true.
I'm not saying that was brand new to Europeans, but they're like, tell me more about what that is.
Did Europe kind of feel more like keeping up with the Joneses? Like, if they got a new barn, or if they got this technology, or if they're producing this many pigs, I need to do whatever I can to kind of keep up, as opposed to focusing on the returns? What was that? Why was that ROI something that maybe seemed like an evolution for them?
Yeah, I think as we, and again, remember, I came in there with PIC, so I came as an American over there to, this is how we're going to work things. Some of those didn't work, by the way, but that hey, what's the value proposition of this animal to you, and what do you got to do to make sure you get this animal to perform to that level? That's where I come in, the tech person, and then get that, and that's a good thing, because you've paid for that, versus I'm just going to pay to get this and not know what happens, And I'm not saying they were terrible at that, But I think we've got a really keen or fine-tuned approach to that here, more in the U.S. We're not perfect, believe me, but I think that was the thing that was brought home. And just that the transparency was something that was a lot more in Europe than I would have here. As former production director, I would not share my P&L with some, consultant or genetic technical guy right off the street, but I got that over there. It's like, help us with this. And that was cool. Really, really cool thing over there.
You probably know we talk a lot about innovation in pork production here. What you might not know is SwineTech, the team behind this podcast, is leading the charge with their PigFlow platform. SwineTech is dedicated to empowering pork producers worldwide to provide high-quality, individualized care for every pig. Their world-class workforce management and point-of-care platform, PigFlow, streamlines, automates, and monitors routine and emergency care, communication, daily workflows, administrative duties, and herd diagnostics. This enables producers to optimize workflow and task clarity, execution efficiency, prioritization, and simplification of compliance assessments. PigFlow empowers managers with the ability to analyze and refine their processes and make adjustments to enhance overall value. If you're interested in learning how producers are maximizing their resources, enhancing efficiencies, and improving employee engagement in pig care with PigFlow, visit swinetechnologies.com.
So when you go to the Romanian vet conference next year, hopefully the weather's better than what it was when you went to the Canadian vet conference in Banff.
Yeah. In January, when was that?
It was January a couple of years ago.
That's real smart,
We were,
right, Barrett?
we
I was
were on
gonna
the,
say, like, you are in Canada. It is January.
Oh, this was different. This was some negative 50 degree weather, and
My
the kids
freaking
were still
eyes,
walking.
My eyes,
Oh,
like, iced over when I went outside. Yeah, it was like not fun.
a while back, there was like one of those social media posts, like negative 50, here, negative 20 here. Like, what's the responses? Like in Minnesota, it's like negative 50. It's like, oh, like it's 2 hour late start. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there snow? It's like, oh, Johnny needs another jacket.
Yeah.
There were children. There were children walking to class, walking to school. Do you remember seeing those kids in their
Yes.
backpacks?
Yes.
Negative 50 degrees, and they're just like, going to school. I'm like, this is relative. Like, we can't make fun of the South no more because in Iowa, if we get to 0 degrees, it's not safe for kids.
I pass those kids in a warm vehicle.
You're like, I feel bad for them.
Yeah, I feel bad for them.
And it
Keep
felt like
going.
planes, trains, and automobiles just to get home.
It
Remember that?
was.
Yeah.
Getting there and coming back. Yes, that was a goat rodeo.
Yeah.
So at JBS, when you took that job, took that role, what was one of your biggest goals coming in? And how has JBS progressed since then? Have you felt like you've made progress towards that goal?
Might have to ask my boss, Dr. Matthew Turner, on that one. But the goal was the same, and I think Dr. Turner was building the foundation for let's be good. Let's go after that. Let's put processes in place, and So again, we put those things in place. I had the chance to be a little bit. I wanted to get digital with these processes, so. At JBS, all of our SOPs are digital with video training. I just saw something the other day. I think it was a National Hog Farmer, right? They were talking about people like to be trained by on-farm training and video. Well, we got lucky because we have that just by dumb luck. So we've got that in place. And just really, at the end of the day, we want to compete amongst ourselves, and we do that. But we are a global company. We got the Ciara group, 300,000 sows down in Brazil, our Australian group, our UK group. But, we want to go toe to toe, and we measure ourselves against the global groups. So when I see the Brazilians doing what they're doing on a high level, that's, 4 years ago, it was a pipe dream. Let's get the processes in place now. Let's go. Let's pick a fight. I say with the Brazilians, because they're good. And the great group, we work well with them. But at the end of the day, we want to go toe to toe with them, and we're not there yet. We're not there yet. On some KPIs, we are. On some, we'll take advantage of. We got our fall meeting next week. We're going to talk about that, but it's that journey to get there. That's pretty cool. And yeah, building the technical team, and that's what my job is now, is to build the highest end technical team in production. And we got a ways to go. And believe me, I'm not perfect, and we're going to work on it together to get there.
So what would you consider to be the thing that makes JBS USA special? What makes you different?
There's a few things. I know somewhere Dr. Coble, our nutritionist, is wanting me to say feed, but I'm going to hold off on that one.
Sorry, Kyle.
Yeah, sorry. What makes us different is, I think we have our values that are out there, and I mean, everybody's got their values, right, or their core principles, or that you see the the posters on the wall. But my boss, Dr. Turner, we live that every day, and if we don't, it gets uncomfortable, So that's a pretty special thing from the top down, and up, from us working at the slat level up. So that's a pretty special thing to see that, when you're hired, when you're reviewed, we're reviewed against those behaviors inside those values, and I think that's pretty cool, so yeah.
Yeah, and I can say one thing that I believe Dr. Turner can agree with, and that's great things come out of the Kinston Hospital. To Kinston, North Carolina. He texted me one day and he said, "You were born in Kinston?" I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "Hey, me too."
Yep.
He's got a pretty interesting story as well.
He does.
So what are some of the goals that JBS has here going forward, and how is technology becoming a bigger piece of those objectives?
Yeah, so our goal, my own goal for our tech team, for our reproductive team is, again, let's get better every day. And I mean, that's kind of coach speak, right? Blah, blah. What the hell is this guy talking about? But what it is, it's about what are we going to do today to get better. We're really fine tuning our approach in, maybe how we look at a KPI. We've gotten into this thing where, name a KPI that's on a sow farm or wean to finish.
Farrowing rate.
Farrow rate, that's a good one. Give me another one.
Stillborns.
Yeah, you can go sow
Stillborns.
mortality.
Sow mortality.
Yep.
What about feed conversion?
It's another good one.
Closeout data. What's inherent to all of those? I feel like a teacher here.
There's a pig.
There's a pig and it's old data,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
It's old data.
Yeah,
So if
we're
Dr.
we're
Turner-
living in a world of KPIs that are designed around a system that could only take in old data.
Old data. I mean, you might be looking at a wean to finish closeout that's 6 months old.
Yep.
You might not even have that building anymore, the way things move around. So our focus is, what are the KPIs that we can look at today that affect this? They're still important. I get paid, a lot on PSY, but, and we did this with the group in Arkansas, Missouri, led by Cindy Looney down there, where we looked at farrow rate. And we said, that's old,
Yeah.
89%. What are we going to do about it? But what can we do today? And we've looked at 5 processes or behaviors. Now, I can't give those away. Those are secret. That is splitting the atom. Not really. And somebody's probably going to listen to this and say, hey, I know those. But we came up with those literally in 5 minutes.
Yep.
To say, hey, what can we do today? These things, this, that I promise you will get you above 90% farrow rate. That's kind of the way we're looking at what we're doing now is PSY, closeout, FCR, those are still important. Those are drivers, but what do we control today?
That leading indicator.
Yeah.
You hit it.
Yep.
Leading versus lagging.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I feel like every individual on a farm should have a leading indicator and a lagging indicator that they can look at to understand if they're doing a good job.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's where, technology, the pig flow, that bottom, that slat up.
Yeah.
That's the real game changer, fellas, I think.
What
Yeah.
are you seeing? Go ahead, Barrett.
No, and I was like, it's just, it's amazing to see that transformation, because Matt mentioned when I came into the industry and they would say, yeah, we do X, Y, and Z for processes. I was like, that's awesome. Where's it written? Like, oh, we do it.
Yeah.
We know. And it's like, it was just kind of like that comfort among like, oh yeah, we do this. But I was like, it's 60%. Do we do it 70% of the time? Do we know if it even works? Does it even matter? And so a lot of those questions like led me down to a couple of rabbit holes, which puts me in a podcast today, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I think the other area that where you're venturing down and will be hopefully in the future is we have a lot of production bonuses out there right now, different swine companies that are all lagging indicators. And then for the farrowing technician, like they're just executing. So it's like, how can we encourage them, incentivize them to execute at a better level? So I like
On
that.
things they can control, right?
Exactly,
That's it.
100%.
And historically, we've kind of kept the people in the farm at the slat level in the dark. I mean, I remember being in the farm, and if I wanted to understand how I did on pre-wean mortality or stillborn rates or my total-born, I kind of had to go walk from card to card and tally it up after work just to see where was I at today and did I do better than yesterday. You actually have a passion for Moneyball.
Oh yeah.
The movie Moneyball, and that's how we met. Can you talk a little bit about how Moneyball and the
You
movie
guys
with
meet in
Brad
the
Pitt?
theater or something?
Yeah, he's-
Kinda. Wisconsin Dells.
he was eating a bag of tuna in the front row, and I was like, "Hey, who's that guy?"
So one of my favorite movies, because it's probably the best HR movie out there, is the movie Moneyball, and it picks the swine industry so much because if you're in the HR, if you're in production and you're hiring, right, like you can't be the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
Like the New York Yankees in town, that's the manufacturing plant down the street that pays $28 an hour, $30 an hour.
If not 35 today.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
get breaks and all the fun
Yeah.
stuff, and they're off at 3:30. We're the Oakland A's in a lot of ways, so we got to look at the right KPIs, be very strategic about the actions that we're incentivizing, hiring for, developing skills for. And it was amazing that in the movie and in the book, it was a bigger, I guess, innovation, revelation in baseball at the time. Everybody was chasing home runs. It was
Yeah.
after McGuire and Sosa.
Sure. Yep.
And they nailed it down to what was the leading indicator of wins. It was on base percentage.
Yeah.
And on base percentage was cheap.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's which
Putting the ball in play.
exactly
Yeah.
put the ball in play.
Yeah.
So like, it's all about like, what are we doing today in the swine industry that really doesn't make a difference to wins, and what does? And so that's one thing that I really enjoy exploring with our producers today. It's like, there's some things, it's like, man, it just so happens that when we win in this metric, this other thing over here goes really well, but I didn't think it was related until today.
Right.
And it is.
Yes.
So,
What's your favorite quote from that movie?
man, like that's not vulgar.
I think we can go vulgar.
So
I want the favorite quote.
if at the end of the movie, all right, so Billy Beane, Brad Pitt, is talking to the general or the owner of the Boston Red Sox, or maybe it was the BP general manager.
Yeah.
And he was explaining to Billy Beane what he was doing to baseball. And he said, if the industry is not playing Moneyball, they're going to be a dinosaur. And I paraphrase that a lot, but I just like, man, like that is business in a nutshell, right? It's like there's something going on today that's just in the very beginning that we have to be ready to adapt to, because otherwise, we could be a dinosaur.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like we're living in that world right now with AI. You can see it. The people who are using it today, and they're becoming comfortable, even if it's not serving a giant purpose. If you're familiar with how to use maybe natural language processing or even the general concept, if you're not doing that 5 years from now, I don't know how relevant you are compared to somebody who might be.
Yeah.
And yeah, you look at that, and I'd be interested in where do you see AI in the pig business? Because we are using AI in our system, and what started out 4 years ago, talking to some folks about this, to say, I look at data, and I think I'm pretty good sometimes at looking at that. But how many times do I get it wrong? And how much time do I waste chasing something that might not be right? So I had this idea of, we're looking at data every second. Every second we got data coming in off the sow farm. So I went to the folks who do our data, and I said, have you ever heard of this AI thing? And they're like, oh yeah, and it's like, what if you could look at the data and tell me what to look at? And they're like, we're kind of doing that with some stuff. And that's evolved. And the first format of that wasn't that good, But we started baking in our SOPs into that, and we started, tweaking what the visual of that looks like, and it is devastatingly good. It is devastatingly freaking good. And as I see that, I think as I printed that out in my hands, I'm like, this is a game changer, because it's like pig flow. It's working up. It's working up, and it's not wrong.
Well, and it comes from two different worlds. So like on the pig flow side, when we look at execution at the slat level within early pig care, there are so many replicates. It is impossible for somebody to walk into a farm and not see a good thing and a bad thing within the same process. That's possible. You can do that. We've always been able to do that.
Yes.
However, the percentage of good versus the percentage of bad is impossible to quantify. But once you start to measure it, we found that 95% of over 500,000 sows were below 40% compliant, checking sows in early pig care. But we thought we were really good, right? We're at 6% stillborns. That's not bad, but genetic potential of a top pigs or a PIC or some of these other genetics, it's 3 to 4%. We can get there. The potential's there. Now you look at AI, and now you have all this data that we've looked at a management level, and we see some good, we see some bad, but there's how much of it's good, how much of it's bad, how does it correlate to one another, and that AI can watch that real time.
Yeah. But where does it go from there? And that's where I'm really thinking about it. Because at the end of the day, it's telling Barrett what to focus on the farm. But now we got to go execute it, right? And
there's got to be a execution management component to what it's telling us. So we've had processes that have told us things. We've had technologies telling us things. Hey, this sow's off feed. But if I don't get that sow on feed as an individual within the next X amount of hours, what good was it? If you give me a camera that says a pig is sick, but I don't treat it within X amount of hours, what good was it? So it's going to matter to... It's going to be really important that we figure out a way to utilize the information it's giving us and then actually measure how effective are we at implementing the feedback. We were talking earlier.
But you can also bake the feedback into the AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's what's cool, because we suck at feedback. So when it's there in front of us saying, hey, you're on the right track, or, you're not, don't give up on the plan. And I think that's very critical. We tend to hit our first roadblock and stop. This is a marathon, and I think that's actually helped us.
It is a marathon, and there's a lot of ways, because you asked, and where AI is being implemented today. I mean, we see it on body condition. Well, we'll start earlier on. GDU. We've got cameras, PIC, and probably other genetics companies that are looking at the structure of the gilt and making that decision. And that data now can be tracked back. Weighing
body
animals,
condition.
it's there. And now when we get into the farm, there's cameras that can detect whether the animal is in heat. There's animals that there's like Rotecna in Spain is able to immediately measure in their ESF feeders is the body condition. What is the body condition of the sow? And then immediately adjust the feed based on their needs and completely remove the human element out of body condition management. And now you're into farrowing, and there you can get cameras there or voice recognition. You get into finishing. We're measuring weights. We're counting pigs with romaine. We're doing that pig counter. And we're starting to see, even in the feedback within the electronic.
Shout out to Marcel with romaine. I'll see him next week.
our favorite
He will
German
enjoy
friend.
that one.
So when we look at it, it's hitting so many different aspects. It's natural language processing with GPT. It's predictive algorithms around disease outbreaks or culling decisions. It's computer vision to measure, weigh, sort. It's hitting every aspect of our business. And I think that the future of AI is going to be completely dependent on people being able to ask the right questions.
That's right. Now, the other kind of sub part to this thing is there's no personality involved, and I don't have any, I've been accused of not having any personality, which is okay. But you remove that. And I've seen that with growers, with farms, with production folks actually be a plus. Because you can say, hey, we're going to cover this. And some of it's tough because it's been spit out by ChatGPT. They're going to listen to it versus if somebody said it, they're going to be like, that guy's an a-hole, you know?
So do you use GPT much yourself?
That and Copilot.
All right. So now here's a fun question.
I'm going to tip my hat.
If in the future AI is a robot walking around like Terminator, right? And it was to come to you, based on the way you communicate to your chatbot, would it find you to be respectful or would it be angry at you? Some people type, please. Can you get me this, please? And some people are like, screw you, you did it wrong. Are you nice in your communications to your AI?
I'm a little bit on the
Rude side?
No, on the conspiracy side. So I'm very nice because when the Terminator time comes, I'm gonna say, look, dude, I was good to you.
Yeah.
So
PJ was kind.
That's right. When it comes, I'm in the good.
When you said that, I never even thought about it. I was like, I do tell it like please and thank you and maybe. All right, I'm on the right track at least.
Barrett also has a piece of tape over his camera, probably too, right? Or
just in case. Just in case. Yeah.
Oh, I've even told it once. I was like, how dumb are you? I was so mad at it once, and it's like, I'm so sorry, sir. I'll figure it out right away. And I'm like, I just gave it a reason to hate me 20 years from now.
Yeah. Be careful.
I gotta
be careful.
Be careful.
So I got a question for you. With the evolution of AIs coming, and anytime we've seen a rapid, a quicker acceleration of growth of knowledge, the previous, personnel or leaders may be a little bit intimidated by it. Mm-hmm. For those production leaders who have, just like you, they have had to cut their teeth the hard way, learn these things. And so what's up here is worth so much to the industry today. What would you say to those who are intimidated by AI replacing some of their worth? And then how would you re-engineer that conversation so they're excited about it?
Yeah, I've had some of those conversations already, and because I'm so naive to it, I'm kind of like a bull in a china shop a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I see the AI that we have now with the data as being a huge help, and that's kind of the way I look at it. And I know Dr. Turner's done the same because I'm, like I said, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong, because the problem is there's going to be less of us. We know the demographics of what's coming up through our farms now. So we're going to have less people expected to do more, and with that, we need very good data to point us in that direction. And that's just the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
So either you was a Winston Churchill. I'm quoting Winston Churchill here. Take change by the hand, or it'll take you by the throat. That we got to do that because man,
never give up.
On the opposite of that is it could be bad.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the old guy out there who said, we should still be natural breeding. It's much better. I don't want to be that person. So let's grab this and see where it's at. With that, I still have to see, because, and we've had this, here's the 3 things you need to work on, because also right now it spits out the 25 things you need to be working on.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you're like, okay, that's not right. We can't go in. Let's get this down to something manageable. And then when you walk on the farm, okay, I'm strong here. I know this person. I might speak their language, so I might take number 3 and make it number 1. So you got to be nuanced around that. I don't know, and maybe I'll be long retired before it figures that out. You still, and that's what we try to teach in our boot camps to our production folks and our field managers is read the farm. Read the farm. Anybody can go in and say your total born sucks. Read the farm and how do I work this, and talking to people, that's this you've seen it. This industry is littered with people who did 33, 34 PSY and aren't in the business anymore because they weren't part of a good chemistry or they didn't know how to work with people. You still got to have that. And I don't know where AI fits in that.
Absolutely.
I still think we got to have people, aging folks like me that can go out there and still execute the plan, even though that plan might come from AI.
One thing that kind of concerns me, and this is my perspective of what's making the industry so different today than what maybe it was historically, is those of us who either grew up in it or started before the industry or as the industry was kind of exploding. You had the opportunity earlier in your career, because facilities were small enough or expectations were high enough, to understand the entire flow and purpose to the industry and the production, the system. A lot of individuals are coming out of college now, taking on a leadership role within a 5,000 head sow farm, but not necessarily feeling or experiencing all the pieces connecting. And so that connecting component, I'm hoping that AI can help with exponentially increasing people's ability to maybe flow a system versus just flowing a sow farm. But also, I think the individuals that are in their 40s, their 50s, maybe even upper 30s that had to learn the hard way have the highest upside when it comes to AI, because they know exactly what questions they should ask and they know how to call bullshit.
Yeah.
So when the AI says, hey, you should do this, it's not as scary because they're like, oh, well, it's wrong on that one thing, but these other 9, that's gold.
Yeah.
And the younger individuals, I think my biggest fear with it is, are they going to know how to call BS?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think we talked about that earlier. It's when we talk about data and AI, and we're trying to build our system around, our business analyst, Darby Evans and Sophie Myers, they are my right-hand people. I talked to Sophie this morning, and it's the ability to, as a production person, and I got to give credit to where credit is due. Dr. Coble has said this before. We don't have to be experts in data.
Yeah.
We don't even have to be experts in the analysis. That's what Sophie and Darby's there for. What we have to be experts in is asking the right questions. And I think, to answer your question, in the future, people like us will have to ask the right questions to get the information that we need to go be nuanced on the farm to make things go. So I think that's going to be important. Things like, I think gone are the days, at least in our system, and I think elsewhere, and I tried to build my time at PIC on that, is gone are the days where we go on a farm and say, hey, let's go do, what do we call, I don't even know the word. Let's go do a walkthrough. Let's go put an extra set of eyes on your farm. That's bullshit.
It is.
That is a waste of valuable time. But if I can come in with a plan around, hey, some training or the things that we've already put in place and how is it going, what's the follow-up, that's where things
We've seen that
good.
with pig flow. If you are seriously understanding your leading and lagging indicators, you should be able to know going into a farm what is working, what isn't, and you're there to verify and train.
Yeah.
Not to go search and explore.
Yeah.
You should know your problems before you even show up.
That's the real key there, is that old way. And that was the way I was brought up. Here's
What you had to do.
Here's the 20 things you're doing wrong. Next visit, my field manager, Mike Wyant. here's the 20 things you're doing wrong. And 19 of those were the same ones you did last time.
Yeah.
The key is, what is that first step to take? When you say guilt management, you come to my farm and say, hey, your guilt total born is low. Okay, I know that. And I think that's what happened in China a lot, okay, what's the next step? And if you're not nuanced in knowing how to do that, you either leave as a consultant or they don't listen to you anymore. That's, going back to my time in Asia, I kept hearing about, what would they call it? The American experts, because it's like, who built this GDU? It's freaking nice. Our American experts had us, helped us do this, and I'm looking at 500-600 pound gilts. Okay. So my next question was, I said, hey, where are those American experts? And they're like, well, I said, no, first of all, I'll take a step back. I said, what kind of direction? Was the direction good? They'd all say the same thing. The direction was perfect. And I'm like, well, where are they? And they're like, well, we really didn't get anything out of that. The next step. So my naivety in Asia and elsewhere was I'd said, well, do you have the notes from what those directions were? And they would give them to me. And I'm like, well, let's do those. But let's do the next step. Because the direction was you got to have good guilt management. And I'm like, I think they're right. But let's get this guilt weight down, and by the way, we can dumb down this diet to be cheaper, and then starting to work on that. I think that was, kind of the real game changer was I didn't want to reinvent. Whoever that was before was nuts on. They had it, but they didn't help with the next step. So maybe that's the analogy with AI. Mm-hmm. It's telling us where it is, but what's the next step? And a lot of times that next step is around labor.
And how can you communicate, empower, organize, and execute?
That's right.
So when you think about AI, I want to make this a blatant statement to anybody listening. I think one of the worst things you can possibly do is use ChatGPT, feel its power, and then look at a $20 price point and expect AI in general to cost $20 a month. AI as a GPT tool is a commercial product designed for people all over the world, regardless of industry or profession. And so it's hitting billions of people, therefore your price point's low. The smaller the industry or the more segmented the group is, or the more niche the problem, the more expensive that AI becomes. And so a chatbot for your data analyst in the office, or for you to figure out how to write better emails, it's very cheap and it's helpful. But if I want computer vision to measure my pig's weights and then tell me which order I should market them, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon have zero incentive to go solve that problem. And so we got to build it from scratch, and it's going to be more expensive. So don't think AI is a cheap way. Typically, AI is the most expensive way to solve a problem. So you got to make sure you're putting it in the place where it belongs most.
Makes sense. It was like you were looking into my soul in the email. I'm like, what's going on?
So for closing thoughts, what is a word of advice that you can offer individuals maybe in their 20s or their teens that feel like they have a future in this industry? What are they going to need to do over the length of their career to take this industry to the next level and be successful?
Yeah. You going to help me out with that one? That's a tough one.
Yeah, Barrett, I want you to chime in too.
You can tag me in if you want to. Need to. I'll let you start though.
Yeah, I think, it goes into what you said about, the folks my age and maybe a little older, maybe a little younger, of having that, we call it street cred, when you know what's going on the South Arm, and I don't know if we want to get off on this much of a tangent, but what's really cool is when you can, we talked about Moneyball.
Yep.
One of my favorite movies is The Matrix.
Okay.
Because remember when Keanu Reeves figured out he was the chosen one?
Yeah.
Remember that when all the things started coming in line? That's what I try to teach on the farm.
Make them all feel like, oh my goodness, I get it now.
When you see it. Because when we talk about day one pig care,
yep.
When it's working, and when it's working perfectly, it's like ballet. I see it like ballet.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's working. You can see people executing. You're like, oh, that's F8, that's F15, that's our individual SOPs that they're doing. And so when you can go on a farm and you can take the AI that says, hey, we need to focus on this, and then you go to the farm and then you see it, that's a beautiful thing. And I think myself, I've gotten there two ways: experience and screwing up. You
were your own AI.
Yeah. Don't.
You had to learn the hard way
do
first.
that again. So I think for folks that are just starting out, you can't skip that step. You got to get in the minors. You got to pay some dues, and that's the tough part. Because you're not going to get paid as much, as going to work for seed company or somebody else, Now it's a cyclical. I don't know where we are in that right now. and you got to get dirty, you know, and if you can do that, there's some really cool things on the other side. You get to work with great people, you know, you could, you know, luck in like I have to be able to travel the world, you know, and work with great people elsewhere. So you got to pay your dues. And I would say, you know, grab that technology like we're talking about and see how that, you know, find that application. Don't say that's not going to happen to us, because it is, you know, and grab onto that. But I think where we see the great versus the good or average is somebody who's got that nuance. They've been there, they've paid their dues, they've seen it, and that's invaluable. Your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with every single bit of that for sure. You know, my two things, I guess, that really came to mind as you were, you know, giving your items there too, was the first one is like the relationships. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that AI will eventually be able to help us out with, right? And tell us, you know, hey, Scan, is my wife mad at me today? Wrong. So, you know, it's the relationships around you, because you can be filled with so much knowledge, so much potential. You can have the right answers, but if you can't build those relationships and have them with you around you, you're going to have shortcomings.
Yeah.
And so being able to really build those relationships around you is going to be massive. And I think that's a timeless piece of advice, right? Was it Dale Carnegie's book? Was it Empower People, Influence Friends or something?
How to make friends and influence people.
There you go. Haven't listened to the whole thing of that, but I figured there's some good tidbits in that. And I would say like the other piece, and this goes for any young professional, is my grandfather who's 88, grew up on a farm, and he's got some fun innovation stories too. But he said when I was going through tough times, he said you could always quit tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. So you just keep one more day at a time, and then you get amazing stories like yourself and your career. Mass went through just a couple hurdles himself. So yeah, you could always quit tomorrow. I always like that.
Yeah.
So I just thought of a new way to use AI, and it's got me kind of
It's easy here. This is PG.
All right. So this might help in home life based on Barrett's comment, and I think it could actually work on the farm.
Yeah.
So if you did create your own little isolated GPT environment or not, if you were to upload your disc profiles, strength assessments, Myers-Briggs, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going through this problem, and I have to go home and I have to ask my wife about it. How should I approach her about it? Well, she's an empathetic, relationally driven person. This might be your best lead-in statement. Huh. You might be able to really connect with people a lot better, and you can ask for a little advice. It takes those personality assessments and it makes them operational.
Or you could get a 12-pack and some Marlboro Reds.
I was gonna say, like, I'm pretty.
I would not suggest that. By
I was
the way.
gonna say,
I heard it
mine's
from
like
a friend.
Mine's like Dairy Zone on the east side of Des Moines. I mean, that usually solves all problems. And if it's wintertime, it's Baskin Robbins. So,
Well,
it didn't take AI to figure that one out.
Well, I want to thank you, PJ and Barrett, for joining me on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun, and excited to experience at least the next decade of the industry together and see where this all goes.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Popular Pig. We aspire to learn and grow together through the experience and wisdom shared by our esteemed guests. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues within the swine industry. For more information, please go to popularpig.com to receive updates when new episodes are available. Popular Pig is brought to you by SwineTech, the award-winning creators of SmartGuard and PigFlow. To learn how PigFlow can help you streamline your workforce and reduce piglet and sow deaths, visit swinetechnologies.com.